The Naked Mennonite live by Real Live Entertainment. People keep asking me if I'm Mennonite. They have no idea how complicated that question really is. When Stephen's family moves to a small conservative town, his search for belonging pulls him closer to truths he'd rather avoid. Part gay burlesque, part history lesson, the Naked Mennonite strips away all facade until only the bare truth is left behind. Faith stripped bare. Okay, and I am now joined by the Naked Mennonite himself, Alan Fehr.
Thanks so much for having me. It's very exciting to be here with you.
Yeah, so you're kind of hitting the fringe, would you call it the fringe circuit? Is that kind of like, you mentioned before we started recording that you're at another fringe festival right now.
Yeah, I've actually got 5 different stops that I'm making this year, which is really exciting. Like I'm literally going coast to coast across Canada, which is the dream, right? So it's great.
When you're at a fringe festival, is it generally a multi-night festival?
Absolutely, yeah. Like I'm really fortunate in that I grew up, just outside of Winnipeg, and Winnipeg has Canada's second largest fringe festival. Like it spans across 12 nights, I guess, with 150 shows this year, I believe. So what that's a really neat place to be able to really cut your teeth as an aspiring theater producer. So that's what I've been doing for the past, 12 years. And now it's been neat to be able to go across Canada and see how other festivals operate, the big and the small.
Okay, very cool. So Winnipeg's kind of known. I've driven through Manitoba. For some reason, I've only ever been to Brandon. I've only ever stopped in Brandon.
That's an interesting stop in Manitoba.
Yeah. So that's cool. I didn't know Winnipeg had such a large fringe festival. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. It was weird to go to Audible and say, "Yeah, I'm here for Fringe," and everyone's like, "Oh, what's that?" Like, oh, yeah, because it's a medium-sized festival here, so it doesn't have the same permutation that other festivals enjoy.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I know here the Fundy Fringe Festival is always like, this is the 13th year, so it's, it's small, obviously New Brunswick, so it's a little smaller here, but even though St. John's a city, but it seems to be a well-supported and really interesting festival, so.
I can't wait to experience it.
Let's go through the time, just for the listeners, of course, let's give them the times that you're going to be performing. So I got 9 to 10 p.m. on Tuesday, 7 to 8 p.m. on Wednesday, 5:30 to 6:30 on Thursday, 7:30 to 8:30 on Friday, and then 8:30 to 9:30 on Saturday. Here, that's at the BMO Studio Theatre. So, of course, like you mentioned, it's mentioned right in the little tag of the story or of the show. People keep asking me if I'm Mennonite, and they have no idea how complicated the question really is. So, that's not quite my question, but obviously, I was like, my first thought was like, why Mennonite? Like, why merge? Why bring this into a story, or like especially with like a burlesque performance?
well, like whatever. Like if you want to like pull back the curtains, I remember I think it was 2019. It was my last show pre-COVID, and I wanted to do a show that could be used at the Winnipeg Kids Fringe as well as just in my own local Mennonite community during our annual festival. So I wrote a show called The Mennonite Fairy Tale. It's just like all these classic fairy tales, but I had Mennonitized them, if you will, just injecting it with all these Mennonite tropes. And I discovered while I was doing that show in Winnipeg that even though it was a kids' fringe show, like at least half the audience were adults who were there without kids. They just came because it had the word Mennonite in it. And I realized, there's a market here for shows that are geared towards, people who have an interest in the Mennonite identity. So that's one way to get butts in seats. And another way to get butts in seats is having nudity in your show. So that's the honest to goodness origin story of where the show came from. And since then, it's just been a very powerful way for me to explore my own identity and to be able to writing this show has been a lot like taking a step back and seeing all these little pieces of healing and recovery that I've been doing over the years, and suddenly I see them in a larger diorama. I didn't realize that. Oh yeah, all these pieces, they all connect, they all intersect with each other in different ways. And being able to write and produce this show has really helped me see the big trajectory of growth and healing that I've taken in my life. And this being able to put on the show in this way has really helped bring that to life. Very
cool. Yeah, I appreciate hearing that the decision was kind of like creativity and also business minded decision, put butts in the seats.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's kind of important when you're doing the arts.
Exactly. Yeah. And it just has to be part of it. So, and you mentioned the healing. That's interesting too. So your creativity, did you know it was helping with the healing, or like as you were putting it together, it kind of presented itself that way?
You know what? I remember that. I was like, like I'd almost finished the first draft. And initially the concept of the show was that this is going to be kind of hammy, kind of slapsticky, like physical, like the idea that, okay, I'm going to be naked on stage, just holding a Bible in front of me. And like, oh, how am I supposed to usually, and now I have to do this thing that requires two hands, but I've only got one hand. And what kind of physical comedy can I milk from this conceit? And then I remember watching a Hannah Gadsby special, and during her first one, her show ends with such a strong, assertive voice. Up until then, it's been laugh, and then she said, no, real talk. We need to talk about this. And when I saw that on a second or third time, I just had this aha moment of like, oh, I have something that I need to say. I need to be able to speak into this situation, this toxic situation that so many people find themselves into. I can use the hard knock lessons that I've been experiencing, and I can actually make a difference in people's lives. Oh, that's what the show needs to be. Okay, I'm going to go back, and now I got to rework all of this into something at least closer to what it is now.
Okay, so it's kind of like, obviously the artistic fun aspect was important, but then you wanted to touch on something that's kind of serious or like a real issue.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I really love about the show is how I'm able to strike that balance of, this is gay burlesque, but at the same time, I'm like, as I'm taking off my clothes, it's because I'm getting more and more vulnerable. So it's the physical as well as the emotional vulnerability that comes into play throughout. And like the fact that I can sustain it over an hour, I'm very proud of what this show has become.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you have to kind of like strategically plan your clothing removal to last. So it makes me think like you could get going a little too fast and then you find yourself too early.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. And it's just, and it's like, it's my story that's being told throughout. And just the different ways that it all comes back and ties in together. And I was so surprised. I started running the show last summer, and when someone reviewed it and said, that it's ultimately a story of hope, I was like, oh yeah, like I really do end off on a hopeful note. I hadn't viewed it from that paradigm, but it's just like, oh yeah, like that was really neat to hear someone else use those words, because that is a big piece of it. It's just the hope that can come from rising up from these ashes.
Yes, that's cool. It's always interesting hearing the audience or like an outsider's quote unquote, point of view of your art, It's interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'd like to touch more on like the Mennonite aspect and you mentioned the kind of the toxic atmosphere, but first I want, and I don't know if that's connected, so I shouldn't put those words in your mouth, but I just want to ask briefly about, you mentioned about having to hold the Bible at one point. And so now you're down to one hand. Kind of what I'm getting at though really is like, this is a constraint, and a lot of artists find like creativity comes when they have some sort of constraint. Yeah. I don't know if you want to touch on that, just built around that part of the show. Or?
Well, yeah. And how much do I, because a large piece of what goes into my marketing, but also the show is like, okay, he says the Naked Mennonite, but how far does he go actually? And I really, really enjoyed playing with that tension. So yeah, like that, but yeah, being able to be constrained in that fashion, and then like playing with those expectations, even at the most unexpected times, has been a great way to really, activate the audience and have them feel really engaged. And because they don't know where or when this show, they don't know where it's going to end, and they don't know how it's going to end. And yeah, I believe that the ending is fully satisfying.
Okay, awesome. That sounds, I mean, I'm kind of interested, and it sounds like it'll be a pretty interesting, maybe we should tell everyone it's rated R, but it sounds like it's meant to be, like, this type of show needs to be rated R to get the point across.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and like, whatever. I remember when I did it in Vancouver, I explicitly said, okay, like, this is 18 plus, just because I am stripping. And I don't want to have kids in the audience. And I remember one of my shows was just like, oh, there's a very child person in the front row. And I'm just like, no. So I just went to my tech and said, okay, we'll take care of it. And they just got ushered out and someone else quickly took their spot. But yeah, like, because I don't want anybody to stumble into the show unaware. I had one Catholic grandma in Winnipeg. She's the only person who had ever expressed any displeasure over the show. I was like, honey, what did you think you were getting into here? But yeah, it's there. Yeah, like, it's so, like, I'm doing the show right now in a United Church here in London, Ontario. And at first they were like, whoa, there's nudity in your show. And it's like, it'll be cool. And then they saw the show. So it's like, okay. Yeah. This is done so well. They got it. So it isn't graphic. It isn't explicit. It isn't, what's that word? For when, oh boy, my brain is
gratuitous, maybe? Or?
Yeah. It isn't sensationalized. Yeah. It isn't a sausage fest.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Okay. Okay. Good to know. So, switching gears, focusing in on Mennonite. So I'm going to project my ignorance onto my audience that I don't know much about the Mennonite communities. Like we have one near where I grew up, which is around here. Did you grow up in a Mennonite community? That's part of the genesis of this show. Like, did I grow up? Like, we moved from Winnipeg to a Mennonite community when I was 16. So, Did I grow up? Well, no, but did it still come at a very important, very influential time? You know, that teenage time when that need to find your tribe, to find your people gets cranked up to 11. That's the setting that I'm in. And like, okay, all these people, all the good people around me are Mennonites. And I've got a Mennonite last name. So how do I answer this question when people ask me, are you Mennonite? Like, I need to find this answer because that's the only way that I'm going to find community. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So moving into that community at 16. Now, like, and again, forgive my ignorance, but when I hear Mennonite, I envision like Amish folk, you know?
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. That's a piece of it. Yeah.
Okay. And so I just want to understand a little bit better, like, before joining the community at 16, would you say you grew up, like, quote unquote, in a normal or like a secular environment, or like?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, yeah. And just to make sure that we're not, using the wrong paint here, like, when I moved to a Mennonite community, it wasn't the Amish style. Like that's why asking me, am I Mennonite, is so complicated, because that is a version of Mennonite, and that's part of the history that I cover during the show. Is like, okay, they start off in the Netherlands, and this is why this happened, and this is how we see this cycle of when the outside world says you need to conform. The most conservative, they're going to split, and they're going to head out to the next place where they can live. So they were, what Mennonites were when they moved from the Netherlands is different from what they were when they arrived in Manitoba, different than what they are in Belize, different than what they are in Bolivia. And then they come back to Canada. So what Mennonite is so fluid. So my Mennonite experience isn't the ultra-conservative Amish style, but that's still an ingredient. I still have friends whose grandparents only spoke Low German, had their head covered, always wore black. That was their grandparents. And that's not them, and that's not where I grew up. But how do I find my place within this complicated milieu?
Wow. I mean, yeah, just hearing you explain that makes it seem way more like I was having such a cliche, like, very narrow-minded vision of, like, Mennonite in my head.
That's why the show is so educational, too.
Very
sexy, cool. Fun, and educational.
Sexy and learning is like, that's how you make the learning happen. People pay attention to sexy learning.
We may have stumbled upon something here.
So, do Mennonite communities, do people generally grow up and stay within that community, or do folks is it typical for folks to kind of venture out and kind of say, "See you later, mom and dad, I'm out of here"?
Well, what do you mean by community? Because I grew up in like a bedroom community of Winnipeg. Like it was just 20 minutes outside the city. So it's one of those places where people come, they live there, but they work in the city and then they just drive back and forth, right? So do they leave the community? Sure, they all work in Winnipeg. But does that mean that they leave the community? Well, their family's here. Maybe their church is here. Do they attend this church? Do they attend another church? What does it mean to be a part of the community?
Okay. Yeah. Again, totally ignorant vision in my mind. I'm picturing just their own little town community and people just live and die. Yeah.
Well, and whatever, not to make things even more complicated, but I've discovered recently that even the flavor of Mennonite that I was being exposed to, because that is even different from other flavors in that it's evangelical. Some American pastors came up from down south and they had big tent revivals, and suddenly, these Mennonites who historically have been like, no, we keep to ourselves. We are insular. We need to keep ourselves apart from this fallen world. These hellfire brimstone preachers from the United States come up and now they're saying, whoa, wait a minute. We actually need to go out and we need to preach. We can't be insulated from the world. God wants us to be out in the world and doing missions work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And even that is so different from so many other flavors of Mennonites that we even see in Manitoba.
Okay. That's really interesting. That's very complicated. I'm excited to see what people's reactions are to the show, because so you blend the history, you blend into it. It's like a factual history of kind of, is it like, let me rewind just for a second. The history part of it, is it like your personal history, or are you covering the Mennonite story? This is a big question.
Well, like the first act of the show, let's say, that's me, using all my Bible college education to explain, okay, this is, in order to understand Mennonites, you have to understand the Bible, because you don't get Mennonites without a literal interpretation of the Bible and the persecution that comes from it. So understanding the Bible means this. Now, to layer on top of that, here's what these people experienced because of their beliefs in the Bible. So that's the setting that I find myself in. Now, here's me in that setting with this understanding of the Bible, and how does that unravel for me? Okay. So, yes to everything.
Okay. So you have to have a literal understanding of the Bible. Okay, that's interesting. Yes. I have a close friend who became a Jehovah's Witness later in life, and so I'm very secular. Like I don't have a lot of knowledge or learning in terms of religious anything. So I kind of convert that in my mind to what he tells me about his journey through the Jehovah's Witness community. So I know those are. I'm not trying to compare Mennonite and Jehovah's Witness, because I'm sure they're very different, but.
Yes, it's still whatever, a community that is based off of faith and an interpretation of a Bronze Age sex.
Yes, yep, a very interconnected community. So when you're when you're putting together the show, how much comes from improv? Like I trying to get into the mind of the writer. Like how much comes from just riffing on things, and how much comes from sitting down and plotting out the journey, writing it.
The show in and of itself is pretty scripted. And if it wasn't scripted, then I'm going to be going way over an hour, right? I've had times where the audience, they are just on fire and they're just gobbling up everything I'm putting down, and then I can't help myself. I have to react to them reacting, and then they react to that, and now and it's just not good for the time. So I just need to be really disciplined and okay, I've got a show, I've got a timeline, you got to get out to your next show. And yet, during the pre-show, when everybody's coming in and sitting down, my pre-show is to break the ice. So I'm out there, I'm chatting them up. I ask if anybody there is Mennonite, and I riff with them a little bit. I ask the audience what they think my favorite Bible story as a kid growing up was. Every audience gets 3 guesses. and they'll give me one idea. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, no. But funny thing about that, did you know that David didn't actually kill Goliath? It says in 2 other parts of the Bible that this other person, but, at some point someone thought that David needed like a cool backstory. So they said, well, let's say that David was the one who, just like spitting out these different facts. One, earning their trust to say that I'm not just some atheist out here shit talking the Bible. Don't know if I can say that. I'm not just some atheist out here trying to talk trash about the Bible. Like, I devoted 7 years of my life to be at Bible college for a reason. And here's one of the benefits. I know a bit about this book that maybe other people don't realize. So that is all really improvised. And it's just one way that I can just use my charisma, hopefully, to put people at ease and help them feel comfortable in this space. And then they're willing to go with me on this journey through the different stages of vulnerability that I hit.
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned trashing. We can say shit, by the way. Trashing the Bible. Yeah, I guess a fundy fringe, like a fringe festival, and you see someone, and the title of a show has a religious connection. I guess you might automatically think that because it's like a fringe kind of like anything goes festival, it might just be some anti-religious. Yeah, I guess I never really thought about that, but that would make sense. So you've encountered people who just assume that's going to be the angle of the show?
Well, possibly. I don't know. Like last year because last year was my first year doing it, I didn't know exactly what I had on my hands. I didn't know how it would be received. So I just hedged my bets and I said, hey, this is just gay burlesque. It's just kinky fun. Come on down for a good time. And people were so surprised when I went for the heavier stuff. They weren't expecting that. And I didn't give them reason to expect it. But they were all very grateful that I was able to handle it the way that I did. So what do people come in expecting? Everyone is different. I remember last year, afterwards, last year in Winnipeg, I was performing a show in Winnipeg Fringe at a bar. And after the show, there was like a table of like 4, middle-aged, kind of preppy dressed guys. They weren't casually dressed. They had the button-up shirt. And they were all just sitting there, and they were after the show. So I figured, these are my boys. I get you. I know why you're here. So I go up to them and I'm like, hey guys, how did you like it? And they're like, it gave us a lot to think about. It was really good. It gave us a lot to think. And like the takeaway was that it gave them a lot to think about. I was just like, wait a minute. You're not like neat and tidy dressed because you're gays, or at least publicly. Is this like a group of men from a church who said, let's go see this was not in my target demographic. I think this was like a men's group from a church, and they came to check. Well, I'm glad I gave you stuff to think about. So yeah, you bring in all types of people. I think that there's going to be a large demographic of people that aren't going to be there, which is fine. They don't need to be there. I'm making space for marginalized voices, so that's who I'm happy to support.
Gotcha. Yeah. Do you have a favorite? I don't know if favorite's the right word, but do you have like a favorite reaction from the crowd?
Woohoo!
Now, do you encourage reactions as the show's unfolding, or do you prefer for?
I found out in Ottawa that Ottawa theater goers are very quiet and respectful. So my first show there was just silence. And then afterwards I learned about this, that you have to give them permission to like react and respond. And as a performer, like knowing that your audience is there and like reacting and responding to your material, and it's not just like a blank wall, is so wonderful. Otherwise you're just like carrying all of this weight on your own. It's such a Herculean effort to work with an audience that is just quiet. So being able to give them that permission, suddenly like, okay, this is better. Now they're laughing at the funny parts. They're woo-hooing at the sexy parts. Okay, now I know that we're in sync. I know what you're connecting with, and I can smash home on those things.
Do you have any, the quiet, I know what you're talking about with the quiet crowd, because I used to play music live and sometimes people wouldn't react, but it doesn't mean they're not enjoying the show, but they're just kind of like taking it all in. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know last year before I made some edits, Like, it was a dense show. And and our suspicion is that people feared that if they laughed or if they responded, they would miss the next thing that I had to say. So they just had to like keep quiet and just hold on so that they would get every little reference that I was making. So it's been good to say, no, this needs to go, that needs to go, kill those darlings, and just give the audience space to like just exist in the performance.
Mm-hmm. To make the flow more conducive or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. All right. Well, that sounds like a pretty exciting show. That's the Naked Mennonite Live. That's happening at the BMO Theatre. So it kicks off next week, starting on Tuesday at 9 p.m., Wednesday at 7 p.m., Thursday at 5:30 p.m., Friday at 7:30 p.m., Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Those are Atlantic times. And that's exciting. So, and where's the best place, Alan, for people to reach out? Is it Facebook or Instagram, or do you have a website? What's the best?
Yeah, like I've got my Facebook up and running, my Insta up and running. I've got my YouTube channel where I'm churning out queer-friendly content, hopefully every week, not while I'm on tour. But otherwise, just making space for people who need the black sheep from any community. I want to give them a spot.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'll include some links to your social media down in the old description below, and folks can check it out that way.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Like, this is me doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's wonderful to be able to find people who are receptive to what I got to put out there.
Beautiful. I'm really excited you're coming here. I'm really excited it's happening. 13th year for the Fundy Fringe, and I love nothing more than like building up and supporting other acts and other creatives. So I appreciate you giving me some of your time today.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Absolutely.
All right, and that was Alan Fehr, the Naked Mennonite. So just once again, his shows are happening next week at the BMO Studio Theatre from Tuesday to Saturday as part of the Fundy Fringe Festival. From 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Tuesday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Wednesday, 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. on Friday, and then 8:30 to 9:30 on Saturday. Sounds like it's going to be a great show. Have a good one.